Welcome, Shani.
Pleasure to be here.
Hey, you are finally in Jerusalem now, not somewhere in America.
I am. It was like fighting tooth and nail to get back into the other realm of this planet.
Hey, thanks for joining us today for a few questions that we think are really going to help our Why Israel network start to wrap their heads around not just Maoz Israel as a ministry, but some of the thinking behind your teaching and the stuff that you do. And we're going to start with something called replacement theology. Can you unpack for us? What is replacement theology?
Okay. Well, it's funny because replacement theology has been coined, but not a lot of people know the term. So some people, if you say, are you replacement theology? They would say, absolutely not. Never heard of it before. So, but then if you get into the nitty gritty of their theology, then you find out that they are. And so I will start by saying most people embrace replacement theology just by default because they don't know any better. I don't think that they have some sort of, anti-Semitic, whatever approach, but it's just, so replacement theology is the premise that God reached out to Israel, made covenants with them, and said, hey, if you guys do this, I'll do this. If you do this, I'll do that. And the bottom line is they ultimately kept rejecting or disobeying his covenant. And so at some point he says, I've had it with you guys. I'm going to the Gentiles. And so then in turn, what the Gentiles do is they so overwhelmingly and perfectly embrace God's, covenant and never break it or sin, ever since that happens. But what they end up doing is saying, okay, so now when I read the scriptures, the promises that God promised to Israel are for us, the church. God has abandoned that concept. He's just tired of the fact that they just kept blowing it. And he is now offering the blessings, not the curses, just the blessings of the scriptures where it says Israel. You either put your name or your church's name or the church in general. So that is the basic overall of replacement theology.
And why is replacement theology so toxic for not just the UK church, but the church worldwide?
Okay, so that's a huge question. There's several issues that I'll address here. First of all, I'll try to put it in the simplest terms possible. The logic of it, okay? If we are saying that God's word is forever, he doesn't change, he doesn't break his word ever. I'll give you kind of a parable, okay? So you have a guy named Josh, okay? So Josh is living life and he meets Judy and he falls in love with Judy and he says, oh my gosh, Judy, you have won my heart. And, I know that you're not the perfect specimen, but you are the one for me. I am committing. Let's go get married. And they sign the ketubah if you're Jewish, but they sign the marriage license and they both put their name there. And Josh loves Judy. And he says, this is forever till death do us part. Okay. And they're married for several years. And, Judy isn't perfect. She makes mistakes. She doesn't cook properly. She doesn't clean. She just doesn't quite do the things that Josh was hoping that a married woman would do. And so at some point, while he's frustrated, he bumps into Christy on the street. And Christy is very beautiful. And Christy, is a little lost, but with a little help, she really, as, they kind of befriend each other just on a cordial level, she really starts to blossom. And, Josh is kind of looking this way and he goes, wow, like Christy's pretty incredible. And some of the things that Judy was really bad at, Christy's really good at. And so at some point, Josh is wrestling within himself because he says, I signed on the dotted line that I would be forever with Judy, but I really love Christy. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to take Christy to the legal office, whatever it is in the UK, the DMV or wherever it is you will go and switch your name. And I'm going to change Christy's name to Judy so that when I go and divorce Judy and marry Christy, I will still be able to say, see, it's Josh and Judy. I will still be able to say it. So I just need to change Christy's name and everything's legit. And that is essentially the logic of replacement theology. That he said he would stick with the Jewish people forever. That he told Abraham, this is an everlasting covenant, which, by the way, the Abrahamic covenant has nothing to do with if you, then I. It's just, this is what I'm going to do. You're going to be a blessing to the families of the earth. Through you, the Messiah is going to come in. All these things that he promises, those don't change. And so if you think that it's ridiculous for Josh to assume that he kept his word by changing Christy's name to Judy, then you can't say that God has decided that because Israel messed up so much that he is therefore now switching to another woman, essentially. So that's, yeah.
That is the most succinct, concise, most heart-wrenching way of answering that question I've ever heard. Well done, Shani. Hey, if you're interested in watching our next question, the next video, if you follow down the bunny trail that we're set up here on Why Israel, we're going to be talking about one new man. So stay tuned for that. But Shani, thank you very much. Great answer.
Mm-hmm.